Um, my name is Davis Talwar. I'm 78 years old, and I was raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I grew up in the 50s in the Midwest, which was different, and but for the most part, my childhood was very happy and vanilla, and everything went the way it was supposed to go, despite the fact that my mother was a single parent with my father traveling all the time. They're present in my life every day. You never forget them. And my mother and I were very close because we spent every moment together. We used to sit around the dinner table, the two of us, for an hour, drinking tea and yakking. There was a big emphasis. First of all, I was a Christian, and I lived in a Jewish neighborhood. So all my friends and all my classmates were Jewish. On a Jewish holiday, I'd be the only one in the school. So my mother had worried all her life about my marrying a Jew. So when I brought home a Hindu, she didn't know what to do. What else? And there was a big emphasis on education. My father was very big on education. He was in educational publishing. And so I went to a magnet school from 6th grade through 12th grade that took the brains out of all the high schools in the city. And that had a big influence on me. And you had to take 3 years of Latin, and 98% of the kids went to university after that. So that was important. And when I finished that, then went on to Oberlin College, which was another highly academic college. And then after that, of course, what do? You go to graduate school. There's nothing else to do. So I went to the University of Michigan in graduate school, and I was going to become an archaeologist, classical archaeologist. That's what I wanted to do. And then I met Ashok. I think my best memories come from high school rather than college. College, I had picked the wrong college. I realized that. But it was so prestigious, I did not want to transfer. And then you go to Michigan, suddenly everybody's got fraternities and sororities, and they're having a good time, they're going to parties. That was something you never heard of in Oberlin. So I really, in graduate school I had a good time because I met him. You see, career question. I had expected to go on to graduate school and become an archaeologist, but by the time I finished, I didn't finish my classics department. I didn't get a PhD in classics as I intended to, because I met him, and I was waiting for them to start classical archaeology, and I wasn't happy doing languages. And so he said to me, why don't you go over to the art history department and tell them that you want to study Indian art history? And I said, what? I don't know anything past Turkey. How am I going to study Indian art history? He said, just go. And they took me. So I got a master's in Indian art history. And after that, I just simply walked down the steps from my final exam into the slide collection. We had an extraordinarily detailed slide and photograph collection at the University of Michigan on India. And people used to come from around the world because they could see the images better on the photographs than they could going to Ajanta and Ellora. it was better lighted. So I met a lot of very interesting people, and I walked down the steps into the slide room, and they said, "We need a curator of Oriental slides and photographs. And since you just got your master's, why don't you do it?" That was my career. So for 4 years I did that until we moved to California. We lived in something called University Towers, which was a 19-story apartment building, which is still there in Ann Arbor. And I was on my way to take the garbage to the garbage chute, and he's standing outside his door, which is next door to us. I didn't know that. And he says, "What are you doing this evening? You want to go out?" And of course, in 1968, was it? I guess. I mean, you didn't do that. You made elaborate plans. I said, "I'm busy." He said, "Oh, fine. What are you doing tomorrow night?" I didn't have an answer. But the reason he recognized me was because I held the elevator for it. And I don't remember doing that. But he remembers because it was so difficult to get an elevator up. And that's how we met. And we went out. We had common interest in foreign films and I don't know what else. What else do we?
One question: How was it like? Because you said that your mom always worried about you marrying a Jew because you lived in a Jewish community. How was it like when you first brought your husband?
When I told them, it was a shock. Of course, my mother lived in Fantasyland all the time. I think that's how she handled life. She saw everything through rose-colored glasses. So she was on board. It was my father who was worried because Ashok said to him, "I'm going to go back." And she's agreed to go. So then he was in a real panic. You can see it on his face in the wedding pictures. But I always got what I wanted, that's the thing. When I look back and I see all the things that my parents gave me, and how many of them I threw away. You know, I mean, I said I wanted to go to Rome to go to school. They said fine. I wanted to spend a summer in Italy. They said fine. All those opportunities. And I never used any of that knowledge, except to be a better person, that's all.
How was life like when you first moved to California?
Oh, well, you have to realize that everyone thought, Hollywood, you know, this is Glitz Town. This is the biggest cow town I ever saw. There was nothing going on here. There was no old money. There was no art. The museum had opened in 1968. We came in 1974. And there was no culture. It was all movies. So, and when we moved to Westlake Village, there was one stoplight in the whole town. So it's changed dramatically since we came.
Seeing the city develop around you, was it something that you had to adjust with, or was it like something new that you're just watching as it slowly developed?
Well, we were part of it because we were both interested in music and dance. So Ashok was involved in having house concerts, inviting musicians. I got involved in dance early on, and I supported programs. When I got involved with LACMA, I then could help get programs into LACMA. So that's what I did. You know, we were involved in developing the Indian scene in Southern California.
That you had some hobbies that you used to do in your free time?
Well, I mean, I did Bharatanatyam, as you said, and we were just really involved in the Indian community. We started the Indian Cultural Society out here in the Conejo Valley. To concerts, and I also wrote 3 books, which is, I think, a regret I have, that I didn't develop a career. But I didn't feel that I could chew gum and walk at the same time. Vikram came in 1977, and he was a difficult child because he didn't sleep. And it wasn't until I decided I could go for 3 years without sleep that I consented to a second one. So there's a lot of space between Vikram and Priya. There's like 7.5 years. And Vikram had problems in school, so I was always a hands-on mom, and perhaps too much of a hands-on mom. You know, maybe I should have let him go his own way. But Vikram, I think Ashok would have liked a lot of kids, but I wasn't capable of handling that. Also, we were out here without any support. Our only support were our friends, no relatives. My parents died early on, so that made it difficult for them because they had no cousins. They only had friends.
Major events that you had in your life, like both happy or sad, just major events that occurred throughout your life.
Well, I was thinking more in terms of world events. You know, I grew up in the 50s where you were hiding underneath your desk because of a nuclear explosion. In the 60s, everybody was trying to get out of Vietnam, and there was lots of rioting and marching and protesting against the Vietnam War. And then at the same time, there was this whole revolution going on with black, you know. So it was a tumultuous time, actually. We were not directly affected, but you were, because the society was at odds. It was not stable. Big events in my life. That's the other thing. You see, I had a very vanilla life. I've been extremely fortunate that everything has gone the way I wanted it to go. The thing that surprises me the most is the choice of husband and wife that my children have made. That, you know, they waited so long. I mean, Vikram was 47 and Priya's 40, and you know, I thought that it was never going to happen. And then when you watch other people's kids and see who they marry, you think, you know, what's going to happen? But I've been very fortunate. They're both better kids than I ever thought they were, you know, and they chose wisely.
What were some struggles that you've encountered, and how have you overcome these struggles?
Struggles. You see, I avoid struggles. I'm good at going around whatever there is a struggle. So, I don't remember any struggles that were just catastrophic to me. I mean, there are, it's like, there are small things in life like leaving the toothpaste cap off, you know, that drives you nuts. But big things, no.
That you felt you've accomplished throughout your life?
Well, I know when I turned 75, I said 50 years of marriage, 30 years of Bharatanatyam, 3 books, I'm finished. You know, those are my big accomplishments. The fact that the kids are great, I just expected them to be. Not that it was anything on my part.
Arangetram, and how was your experience learning Bharatanatyam not being Indian yourself?
Well, you see, even when I got married, I wore saris. I wore a sari to India to get married. I cooked Indian food. All our friends are Indian, they're not Americans. So I had an Arangetram. I was 62 years old at that time, which is pretty old. And it's only because of Vijay Prakash, who's an excellent, excellent teacher. And she makes everybody look good. So, yeah. And, I would dance 5 hours a day because you needed that to get ready for it. And she started us a year and a half before the Arangetram, which she never does. There were 3 of us together. They called us the Golden Girls. And it was, and we used to have lots of fun. On Saturdays we would go to her, and then after our dance thing we would have a picnic. I felt that I never felt like an outsider, because that was one of the great things about Indian culture, is that they are so inclusive. If you show any interest, they're all over you. They want you, to know everything. And that was good. My roommate in college her parents had fled Estonia during World War II. And I still keep in touch with her. She lives back in Estonia. But I had a breadth of people, friends from outside the country. That made a difference. Always been fascinated by other cultures.
Message for future generations, and what do you wish to convey for the
future generations? Just as you get older, you begin to think, what didn't I do? What should I have done? I think taking joy in the moment is important. Not something that I did. Live like your dog in the present, instead of worrying about the future. Or I'm a great past dweller. And it's interesting because he lives in the future, I live in the past, our dog lives in the present. That's it. Appreciate more the journey. And it's hard to appreciate the journey when you're struggling with kids going to soccer games and karate, tournaments and things like that. And I think that's the other thing. You don't take enough joy in your kids when they're little, because you're too busy telling them what to do.
Unfulfilled wishes or stuff that you wish you could have done throughout your life that you didn't?
Well, I sort of wish that I had developed a career, but I didn't, because I was shy, I guess. I don't know. I didn't feel confident enough, and that's another thing you should instill in your kids, is confidence. And but I do have the 3 books. I have a 4th in publication. That'd be my legacy, outside of whatever little guys you produce.
I'm Priya, I'm Kay's daughter, and so some huge appreciations about my mom growing up were that she was really present. My friends used to call her Super Mom because she was always making all of their favorite foods and packing them in my lunch, and I had sort of the quintessential stay-at-home mom. Like, I got all the benefits of having a mom around all the time. I loved the one-on-one time that we spent together a lot, going shopping, going to the mall, And she's always just a really, you know, she was the one holding together all of our family friends. She mentioned that, you know, I didn't grow up with cousins and all I had was friends, but I felt like I grew up with cousins because she was so essential in keeping together our family friends, making it feel like we always had a home and a family and a support, and always gave me a lot of time, you know. In my adult life, I really appreciate that she would come up to Santa Barbara and we would have girls' nights and sleepovers and things like that. One other thing that really impresses me about my mom is from where she came from and what she was able to do in terms of cultural adaptation and marrying somebody totally outside of her race. And we're not talking about just somebody from Europe, but like somebody from like India in the 1940s. Like, it was a very different life that they had lived so far, but she has really been amazing in culturally adapting to that and being so open, way more than anybody else I could imagine, and her family being, you know, cooking all the foods and doing all the holidays and knowing all about Ram and all these people. So yeah, that's a big, something I'm very impressed by. Well, one of the fun me to make was tandoori chicken. She makes a great aloo puri. She knows all the sabzis. She's always soaking some dal in the kitchen, a mung dal, a yellow dal, a kali dal. Bangan, fried bangan is one of my favorite things that she makes. Always really liked bindi growing up. Those were my favorites.
Rajma.
Yeah, she was good at rajma too. Rajma yogurt. She makes her own homemade yogurt.
Janana janana tanana tanana tom. Janana janana tanana tanana tom. Janana janana tanana tanana janana janana tanana tanana tom tom. Janana janana tanana tanana tom tom. Janana janana tanana tanana geeta dhuni ko takadhim natr kita tom naach rahe gori taal tai tai tom pira tom geeta dhuni ko takadhim natr kita tom